It was supposed to be a temporary arrangement. My apartment was being fumigated for 2 weeks, and my mom, bless her infinite talent for overcomplicating things, had suggested I stay at her friend Monica's place instead of shelling out money for a hotel. "You basically grew up around her," she'd said. "You'll be comfortable there." I wasn't sure what my teenage years had to do with my adult self, but I was too tired to argue. So I moved in with Monica, just for 2 weeks. I hadn't seen her in a while. A few years, maybe. We used to spend holidays and birthdays together. She and Mom were inseparable for most of my childhood, but at some point, life split them in different directions. And now, Monica lived alone in her sleek 2-story townhouse on the edge of the city. Clean lines, scented candles, throw blankets draped in just the right way. The kind of place that didn't feel lived in until you noticed the little details. Half-read books beside the bed, a pair of slippers tucked under the couch, a mug with lipstick stains drying near the sink. She welcomed me like no time had passed. Warm smile, loose t-shirt, hair tied in a messy bun. "Still like your coffee strong?" she asked that first morning, as if I hadn't been away at college for the past 4 years, as if we still lived 2 blocks apart and I was just dropping in after class. "Still do," I said, and somehow that was that. It wasn't awkward. That surprised me. We shared the space easily. She had her routines. Morning yoga in the living room, phone calls on the balcony, soft jazz in the kitchen when she cooked. I tried to stay out of her way. Made my own breakfast, helped with dishes, offered to carry heavy things before she even asked. Felt natural. But there was something else, too. Something I couldn't quite name. It was in the way she moved around me. Effortless, confident, like the house belonged to her body as much as her name. In the way she leaned on the countertop while sipping coffee, her gaze landing on me just a second longer than it needed to. In the way she didn't flinch when I walked into the kitchen shirtless in the mornings, just raised one amused eyebrow and kept stirring the pan. I told myself it was just her personality. Monica had always been warm, relaxed, casually affectionate. I remembered that from years ago, but back then, I hadn't noticed how her tank tops clung to her ribs after yoga. I hadn't noticed the subtle sway of her hips when she walked barefoot down the hallway. I hadn't noticed the way her laugh dipped low when it was just the two of us. Now I did, and I hated that I noticed, because noticing meant something, and I didn't know what to do with that. On the 4th evening, just after dinner, I heard the low hum of the washing machine through the floor. I'd forgotten she mentioned doing laundry earlier. I was heading to the guest room when I passed the open door to the laundry nook, just a small tiled space off the hallway, big enough for the machines and a narrow shelf above them. I paused. Monica was sitting on top of the washing machine, literally, perched on the edge, one leg crossed over the other, a glass of white wine in her hand. The machine rumbled gently beneath her, vibrating through the floor, through the walls, through the soles of my feet. She wore a loose V-neck tee and bike shorts, hair slightly damp from a shower. Her foot bounced slightly to the rhythm of the machine. She didn't look up right away. I stood there for a second too long, caught off guard. Then she turned her head and saw me. "Oh," she said with a half smile. "Didn't hear you." I swallowed. "Didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't." She took a sip from her glass, then tilted her head. "Feel the vibration?" The question hit me sideways. My mouth opened, closed. She grinned. "I mean the machine," she said, tapping the lid beneath her with her free hand. "This one always shakes like crazy on the spin cycle, right?" I said, clearing my throat. "The spin cycle." She watched me, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. Then she shrugged, took another sip, and looked forward again. I stood there, one hand still on the doorframe, heart thudding for no good reason. The buzz of the washer filled the silence. A soft hum, a steady pulse. She didn't move. Neither did I. Eventually, she looked back at me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just thought you needed help with something." She tilted her head. "I don't. But I won't stop you." That smile again. I laughed, a little too tight. "I'll, let you enjoy your wine. Suit yourself." I turned and walked off, trying not to let the heat reach my ears. The rest of the evening, I couldn't stop hearing that question in my head. Feel the vibration? I did, more than she knew. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of the wine or the soft music Monica played in the living room after I retreated to the guest room. Not even because of the faint glow from the hallway that spilled under my door. It was her voice. Feel the vibration? The words looped in my head like a whisper I couldn't shake. I told myself it was nothing, that she was joking, that it was exactly what it sounded like about the machine. But that smile, that look in her eyes, stayed with me. The next morning was quieter than usual. I came into the kitchen expecting to find her humming by the stove or scrolling her phone at the counter. But she wasn't there. The air still smelled like citrus and warm toast, so she couldn't have gone far. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sipped in silence, trying not to read too much into anything. She appeared a few minutes later, barefoot, in loose linen pants and a tank top with one strap slipping slightly down her shoulder. Her hair was up, skin still fresh from a shower. She looked effortless, too effortless. She moved around the kitchen like she belonged there, like the space was an extension of her body. "Morning," she said, reaching past me for a spoon. "Hey," I replied. "Sleep okay?" She nodded, like a rock. "You?" Eventually, she stirred her yogurt without looking at me. "Too much on your mind?" Something about the way she said it made me glance up. But she didn't meet my eyes, just kept stirring, slowly, deliberately. "I guess," I said. "The machine was pretty loud last night." That made her laugh. "You're not going to let me live that down, are you?" "I'm not sure what there is to live down." She gave me a sideways look. "You're cute when you're pretending." I blinked. "Pretending what?" "That you didn't notice." The air tightened between us. I froze, hands still on my mug. She scooped a spoonful of yogurt into her mouth, chewing slowly, then licking the spoon with far too much calm. I didn't answer, mostly because I didn't know what the right answer was. She let it hang there for a few seconds, then walked over to the sink and rinsed her spoon. The tension broke, but not entirely. The day went on mostly as usual. I had work to finish on my laptop, a few emails to send. Monica disappeared into a video call in her room for an hour, then emerged later in a cropped sweatshirt and shorts, talking about needing to do more laundry before the weekend. I offered to help, half out of politeness, half out of something I didn't want to name. "Sure," she said, "if you don't mind folding." We sorted clothes together in the living room, TV playing quietly in the background. Her clothes were mixed with mine, t-shirts, socks, towels. There was something weirdly intimate about it. She handed me a pair of her leggings at one point, and I hesitated before folding them. They were still warm. Her eyes flicked to mine. She noticed. Neither of us said anything. By evening, the sun dipped low, pouring gold across the hardwood floors. She opened a bottle of wine and poured us each a glass, wordlessly, like it was just routine now. We sat across from each other on the floor, legs stretched out, a half-finished pile of laundry between us. "This is dangerously domestic," I joked. She smiled. "Dangerously is right." I took a sip. "I don't usually let people stay here," she said after a pause. "I like my space." "I can tell," I said. "It's curated." She laughed. You mean controlled? I didn't say that. But you're not wrong. Another sip. A pause. Her fingers ran along the rim of her glass. It's weird, she said softly. Having someone here who remembers me from when I was different. Different how? She looked at me. Less guarded. More chaotic. You know, back when I used to wear glitter eyeliner and flirt with bartenders for free fries. I laughed. I think I remember that phase. She tilted her head. You were 12. Still counts. She sipped. And now, I met her eyes. Now you make laundry feel like a full-body experience. Her expression shifted, surprise first, then something else. Something unreadable. I'm sorry, I said quickly, heart racing. That was... No, she cut me off. Don't apologize. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, like the room had inhaled and didn't want to exhale yet. Then came the knock. Not on the door, but a soft, rhythmic thump from down the hall. The washing machine. She stood, glass still in hand, and turned to me. Come on, she said with a glint in her voice. You owe me help, remember? I followed her into the narrow laundry nook. The machine was mid-spin, vibrating steadily beneath her feet. She turned and hopped up onto it without hesitation, wine glass still in her left hand. The moment felt suspended. Still feel it? She asked. I didn't answer, because the truth was, I felt everything. She didn't move when I entered the laundry nook. Just sat there, on top of the gently shaking washing machine. Legs crossed at the ankles, glass of wine resting lightly in her palm. Eyes fixed on mine like I'd taken too long to follow. The spin cycle throbbed beneath her, low and steady. Her tank top clung slightly to her ribs, rising and falling with her breath. I leaned against the doorframe, unsure of what I was supposed to do. You always this quiet? She asked. Or is it just me? I smirked. It's not just you. She tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing with amused suspicion. I don't believe that. I stepped further in, arms crossed. What do you want me to say? She tapped her fingers against the glass stem. I don't want you to say anything you don't mean. The machine let out a mechanical groan and shook a little harder. She shifted slightly, adjusting her balance, but didn't get off. You're the first person to use this space with me, she said softly. Usually it's just me in here, folding, waiting, thinking. Thinking about what? Her eyes flicked to mine. About what I'm missing. That landed heavier than I expected. Monica didn't usually speak like that. She was light, fluid, teasing. But now her tone was different. Low, quiet, unguarded. I took a breath and stepped closer, standing across from her now. The room was small, and with the machine between us, our knees were almost touching. She looked up at me from her seat, the vibration still humming under her. Do you ever wonder? She said, voice barely louder than the machine. What might happen if we stopped pretending we don't notice things? I swallowed. I do. Her eyebrow lifted. Do you? I nodded. Slowly. The hum of the washer filled the silence between us. The only other sound was the clink of glass as she set her wine down on the shelf beside her. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, hands hanging loose. Her face was inches from mine now. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, she said gently. You're not, I replied. Too fast. She smirked. Liar. I smiled, despite the storm churning in my chest. She leaned back again, one hand brushing her thigh absent-mindedly. The motion felt casual, but it wasn't. Nothing about this was. You've grown up, she said suddenly. That sounds condescending, I know, but it's true. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what would happen if I opened my mouth. I remember when you used to follow me around the house, asking about bands you didn't even know. I was trying to seem cool. She laughed quietly. You were cute. A pause. And now? I asked. She held my gaze. Now you're something else. The washer beeped. The cycle was done. But neither of us moved. The sound seemed to hang there like a question waiting for an answer. She finally slid down from the machine, slow, controlled, the way someone might if they were aware of every inch of themselves. She stood in front of me, close, too close. I didn't step back. She reached past me, brushing my side as she opened the lid. The warm scent of clean cotton spilled out. She started pulling out clothes, shirts, socks, towels, and placing them in the basket at her feet. I crouched automatically to help, needing something to do with my hands. We worked in silence. Her arm brushed mine twice. I didn't flinch. She didn't either. When the basket was full, she picked it up, but I stopped her. I got it. She raised an eyebrow. Chivalrous. Just don't want you to throw your back out. That's what you tell yourself. I carried the basket into the living room, and she followed behind, slowly, her fingers trailing lightly along the wall as she walked. She didn't sit on the couch this time. She dropped onto the floor, legs crossed, and patted the space beside her. Come on, she said. You're in this now. I sat. She pulled out a towel, folded it carefully. I mirrored her. For a few minutes, we just worked. Quiet. Close. Then she said, without looking up, I'm not used to this. To what? Letting someone in. Even just for 2 weeks. I watched her hands as she folded. I can go if it's too much. She looked up sharply. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She paused. Set the towel down. I meant, it's harder to stay in control when someone else sees you. Sees you how? She didn't answer right away. Then, in between, when you're not polished, not trying. I think that's when you're the most real. Her eyes found mine. Exactly. The pile of laundry shrank, but the weight in the room didn't. She leaned back on her hands, legs stretched out, wine glass within reach again. You feel it too, don't you? She asked. I didn't pretend not to understand. I do. Her lips parted, just barely. Then she said, this thing between us, it didn't start today, did it? No. And it doesn't go away just because we pretend it's not there. No. She looked down into her glass. I don't know what it is. Me neither. But I know I don't want to ignore it anymore. She reached out. Not for my hand, but for another shirt. Folded it slowly. But her shoulder pressed into mine now. Light, warm, purposeful. We didn't say anything after that. We didn't need to. The next morning was gray. Not stormy. Just overcast in that quiet, muted way where the light is soft and the world feels slower. I woke to the smell of coffee and the distant sound of a knife tapping against a cutting board. Familiar, domestic, dangerous. I stayed in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling fan. It wasn't moving, and yet something inside me wouldn't stop spinning. When I finally got up and made my way to the kitchen, Monica was already there. She wore a long sweatshirt, sleeves pushed up to her elbows, legs bare beneath the hem. Her hair was tied in a loose bun again, and she looked unchanged. But everything was different now. She glanced up when I entered. Coffee's fresh. Thanks. I poured myself a mug. She turned back to whatever she was chopping. Peaches maybe, or plums. The air was still, the silence easy but not casual. I leaned against the counter, watching the back of her neck. After a minute, she spoke. Laundry's waiting. I raised an eyebrow. Again. She nodded, smiling without looking. One more load. Thought you'd want to help. She walked down the hall without waiting for an answer. I followed. The machine was already running by the time I stepped into the laundry nook. She was there again, sitting on it, legs dangling slightly, bare toes brushing the cabinet. She didn't have her wine glass this time. Just her. Just me. Just the low hum beneath us. Déjà vu, I said softly. She smiled. I guess we found a routine. I stepped closer. She didn't move. The spin cycle started to kick in. The vibration deepened, stronger now, louder. It pulsed through the floor, through the soles of my feet, through the air between us. Her eyes met mine. You feel it? She asked again. My mouth went dry. I do, I said. But that's not what I meant, she added. I nodded. The space between us was razor thin now. Not touching. Not yet. But the gravity was unmistakable. She reached for my wrist. Lightly. Her fingers barely touched my skin, but it was enough to make the air shift. I don't want this to be a mistake, she said. It's not. You don't know that. I do. She searched my face like she was trying to find the fault line. Some crack that would make it okay to pull away. But I didn't give her one. You could walk out right now, she said, and we'd both pretend this never happened. I could, I agreed, but I'd regret it. The machine buzzed louder now. We didn't look at it. We didn't even hear it anymore. This scares me, she whispered. I know. Not because of you. Because of me. I stepped closer. Our knees touched now. She didn't move. You don't have to say anything else, I said. But I want to. I waited. She looked up at me, her voice low and steady. I've never let someone into this space. Not like this. Not into the part of me that lives between the dishes and the laundry and the quiet nights. I always keep it closed. You opened it. She nodded. I don't know why. I think you do. Another pause. A long one. Then she said, almost to herself, You're not a boy. I shook my head. Not anymore. She swallowed hard. Then she reached up and pressed her hand gently to my chest. Then show me, she whispered. But not all at once. Just be here. Don't disappear. I'm not going anywhere. She leaned forward until her forehead rested lightly against mine. Nothing more. No kiss. No sudden move. Just contact. Warm. Simple. Real. The spin cycle slowed. The vibration faded. But the current between us stayed strong. Later, we folded laundry on the floor again, side by side. She handed me one of her sweatshirts, still warm from the dryer. I folded it carefully, hands deliberate. At one point, our fingers brushed again. But neither of us flinched. No teasing this time. No jokes. Just presence. When everything was put away, she stood and looked at me. What now? She asked. I shrugged slightly. We live. She raised an eyebrow. And what does that mean? It means I'll be here when you make coffee. I'll help fold your towels. I'll keep pretending not to stare when you walk barefoot down the hall. And you'll keep pretending it's not on purpose. She smiled at that. Not wide, but deep. Then she said, Whatever this is, it's real now. And we both knew that's all it had to be. For now.